is item tag. Well, you may have heard of item tag at some point in your life, but clearly not well. Well. Okay, I know what I was going for there. But here's a quick tutorial on how item tag works. Well, what even is item tag? Item tag is a plugin. Yeah, I know, who could have known? Item tag is very crucial for anyone who doesn't know script and doesn't know how to code. And yet, those buffoons want to make cool items which are multi-layered and multi-structured. So idiotic, right? Well, wrong. It's actually very easy to do with item tag. Watch and learn. How did I do that? Well, that's a fucking fire. How did that happen? Item tag allows you to attach commands to an item. What commands does this have? Yeah, I'm sure you can read, but in case you're legally blind, command fireentity fireball. You may be wondering, what is fireentity? That's not a command in vanilla Minecraft. Does this look like vanilla Minecraft to you? It's a command from the plugin Essentials. Essentials is actually a really clever per se. I mean, it's very time conservant and convenient for the main things that you're gonna need while making your server. As you just saw, fire entity from Essentials lets you fire an entity, and the original entity, the base, it's a fire. Why is that relevant? Because that's literally all I'm gonna show you. The first one was command. Now why is that relevant? Well, the second one, as you can see, is commandasop, and the third one is server. What is the difference? Well, so you see, when you use command, when you're deop, it's just not gonna work. If I deop myself, doesn't work. You do not have access to that. But if I use command as opt, it runs it as if I'm opt, meaning fire. However, what about the third one? You may be asking. Well, server command runs it as console, meaning if you use this for firing a fireball, you are a fucking idiot. How? It runs it as console. Console is not an entity. You need to be something to shoot a fireball. Look, nothing. But it didn't give me an error either, because it literally did not happen. Server command is really only useful for a few things, but that depends on what you're making. So, sorry to anyone who feels offended by that. But yes, for most situations, you're probably only going to need to use command and commandasop. Anyhow, you may see that I'm out of permissions. How does one fix that? Well, a normal human being would go to their console and run op their user. However, that person is a norm. If you want a quick shortcut to use while you're being raided, just use server command op your user. It's literally just that simple. And I'm off. However, as you may have seen, till now, all the items had only one use. Why? Well, these are all one-time use items because in the syntax, you can see item tag actions uses. The base default is 1, but you can make that infinite. -1 means infinite. And any number that you specify is that number of uses. Why is this relevant? Well, for any idiots who ask that, people want to make multi-layered items a lot of the time. For example, multiple use. That's so convenient. Why would you not want this? You idiot! Okay. So, moving on. You may have thought, how is this useful if you can only run one command? Good question. A plus. You can add delays. How so? Another one. See, I didn't right click twice. You can look in the top right or the top left at my counters for left right click or left mouse button, right mouse button. Only one click, and yet it shoots twice. Why? Item tag, actions, add, delay, ticks, command as op. Now what is the ticks part? See, in Minecraft, 1 second is made up of 12 ticks. How is this relevant? Well, clearly you can tell if you ask that question, you are a legal moron. Anyways, here there's just 2 commands. How is that going to be great? Clearly you need more. Or that. Yeah, you can make all that with one simple plugin and simple syntax. You know, for item tags, in a lot of stuff that you want to make, you're gonna need to know the syntax and commands for either the plugin you're using to attach the commands with, or the syntax for normal Minecraft commands. Which may seem like a bummer to anyone who's watching this for absolutely no reason. But if you are a Minecraft dev, you do understand. Bro, I hope. I hope. If you don't, well, that's on you. But anyways, throw these all out. Why are these even relevant? What have you learned from this? Well, now let me show some actual syntax. Item tag, actions, add, command, fire entity, fire. That's how you make that. Now if you want to use commandasop, you just change this value to commandasop. If you want to make it server command for some reason, well, you can just change this to server command. It's just that simple. Why is this relevant? You can't just teleport to me and take items out of my inventory. I know it's hard to believe, but you need to make items yourself. Yeah, no, anyways. What about the delays? Well, command as op, fire entity firewall. Just one command. Oh, and by the way, you don't need to use delay. You can stack commands anyway. Do fireballs right there. Anyhow, command as op, and then there's a little thing you can do here. You can use delay and then input the ticks, and then the rest of the command stays the same. Just as such. Now, if you want to have multiple uses on your commands, how are you going to do that? Well, item tag actions add is just a small portion. You can select uses and you can make it 10. Now it has 10 uses and it's going to disappear after 10 clicks. If you want infinite uses on an item, you just put -1 and now it has unlimited uses. See, you're learning. This rain is annoying. So, what else do you need to know? You may be wondering. See, item tag isn't all about just commands. See, normally using tellraw, it's very limited as to what you can do. See, if I try to use tellraw to tell you a message, E, what colors do you have access to? See, the only colors you have access to are simple colors, like how team will show you. Team add E, team modify E, color, these options. How do you use other colors? Like how you can use in a lot of plugins, such as hex codes, gradients, and so on. Well, even for simple color codes like N4, which you can just use to get a dark red just as such. How are you going to do that? The game won't let you, will it? Invalid color name N4. How are you going to do that? Well, you see. Oh, hold on. No, I remember there is a specific way you can, but either way, it's a lot of work and it's heavily inconvenient. Too much extra syntax. Plus, attaching it to an item is kind of impossible for longer messages because the amount of extra syntax will make the amount you can input a hell lot smaller. How do you bypass that? Well, you input uses to a high amount first of all, for convenience for this tutorial. Add message. What is this gonna do? That's just a blank message. Because for any idiots who thought that would work, you need to put a message after a color. Yeah, no, I'm sure everyone knew that. If you didn't, you're an idiot. Yeah. See, look at that. Look at that. So fabulous. So fabulous. However, if you want to use a hex code, for example, that clearly doesn't work. Why? Because to use colors in Minecraft, you need to put an "and" after them. Just as such. Why didn't that work? Well, that didn't work either. You may be wondering why. So you see, when you go back to the website that I just went, you can see in the example text that you need to have a clear multiple word set. See, that also doesn't work. Why? You need external plugins to be able to do this. I know it's a bummer, but still, it's heavily convenient in direct comparison to using this hell of a command. You need the plugin chatgirl. Yeah, yeah. You need chatgirl. But how's that gonna influence it? What are you even gonna do with chatgirl? What do you think you're gonna do with chatgirl? Anyhow, that's all. And I actually don't know how to end off this one.